Hi, this is Peter Godinez, your host of Your Pivot Journey. Um, all my interviews are really special, but I'm going to tell you this is very special too because I have two people on I very respect very much. One I'll start off with is my former co-host of Guys Talk Time, Keith Gunther, and he's
Blog
on the
Talk
line. And
Radio.
12 years ago, over a decade ago, we had the privilege of interviewing a lady, Nancy Marmolejo. See, a little spice when I say that. And we have her on the line. And Keith and I are going to go back in time and do the interview we did that long ago over again. So, Keith, why don't you go ahead and say hello to the audience and we'll get started here and introduce Nancy.
Hello. Happy Thursday.
It is Thursday here. So Nancy, why don't you go ahead and say something? Because I want to read your bio because I think it's interesting. And why don't you give a little shout out to the people right now?
Hey, people. I'll give it short and sweet like Keith did.
We should have warmed up more in the calisthenics area.
Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. Feels like a Friday.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. How you doing? It's great to be here, and we have time traveled together. I can't believe it's been 12 years. That's I think some people probably weren't even born yet who are now internet marketing millionaires.
True.
No, and as well, you'll see in the post production, you're going to hear some of those interviews, and we when we listen, we just can't believe what we said, but we're here now. So with that, let me go ahead and just read Nancy's bio. I don't think I would do justice trying to memorize and saying that. Nancy Marmolejo is an executive coach and keynote speaker who teaches leaders and entrepreneurs how to tap into their deep genius. This one of a kind combination of innate strength, life experiences, and accrued expertise that only you can bring to the table. She brings that expertise to activate an authentic brand messaging, founder stories, leadership development, and personal branding. Dubbed a professional paradigm shifter, Nancy's been featured in Forbes, the Huffington Post, Latina, Univision, Smart Money, Red Books, as well as many other popular podcasts. Her clients include leaders in the hotel industry, engineering, city governments, state commissions, global consulting teams, app developers, founders, authors, and entrepreneurs. An avid trivia nerd and unapologetic cat mom, Nancy lives in Northern California with her family and her large orange cat. So, how'd I do, Nancy? Was that okay?
That you covered all the important points, ending up on the trivia nerd, that's what people remember. Get a lightning round at the end of this.
That would be fun. But Nancy, this whole interview was just based on, the methods and the mindset of communication to reach and engage and help both emotionally, mentally, financially, people's targeted audience. And I flipped the coin and I got the first question, Nancy. But Nancy, I was just so impressed with the free PDF, which basically explains, when somebody asks you the question, what do you exactly do? And I want to give a shout out to the PDF, the 10 scroll stopping, head turning message starters. So with that, Nancy, I want to say, Nancy, what is it you do?
I can answer that in a couple of different ways, Peter. I can actually turn it around and say, before I tell you what I do, let me tell you what I'm passionate about. And they're kind of the same thing. I reflect people's value back to them, and then I help them put it back into words. And whether I'm working with corporate leaders or entrepreneurs or other coaches and consultants, it always somehow finds its way back to that.
Call that an elevator pitch at 3M.
Right.
Is,
I'm yes, and I have an opinion about that. If you around how people use it in the appropriate situations, right?
So not just any elevator.
Right.
That makes sense. Um, as Peter had indicated, we had that interview 12 years ago, and at that point, social media was just starting, and of course, how crazy is that and ironic that here we are now, where Zoom is something that 5-year-old kindergartners are doing on a daily basis, and back then it was something that was fairly new and wonderful, but really we didn't know a lot about it. And what I'm wondering, Nancy, is over that 12-year period since 2009, are there any learning points that stand out in your mind that you've gone through in that period of time?
Oh my gosh, there's been so many. I mean, there are some things that haven't changed, and I'm glad. And I think that when we understand our core values and our core philosophy in business, if we stay grounded in that place, we're going to do well no matter what happens. Zoom, not Zoom. I mean, once upon a time it was instant teleseminar, and then it was Zoom, and then, all these different things that we use. And I have always been a person who stands around the flagpole of know, like, and trust. We do business with people that we know, we like, and we trust. And I see your marketing as a way to do that, the way that you treat people as a way to do that, the way that you run your business. And so that is something that I held firmly to 12 years ago when we first spoke. And I think we might have even mentioned that on that interview. And to this day, I think one of the things that happens is people are constantly trying to reinvent themselves to respond to what they think the market wants. And it's not about whether they like it or whether they're passionate about it or whether they're even good at it. It's just like, oh, there's an opportunity. Let's jump on it. Let's become the Clubhouse expert. Let's become this, you can make $1 million with this thing over here. And it may or may not be what they're great at or passionate about. So I try to steer people back towards themselves. Say, okay, let's stay here with you. What are your core values and what is it that you really stand for? And how can you create your business around that rather than jumping around and reinventing yourself for every external situation?
That's true. That's been true all this time. And you've been right all this time as well. So it's
I
kind of
love
nice.
hearing that. Yes, those are my 3 favorite words. You were right.
Yeah. Nancy, just the next question is, obviously all of us know that the pandemic of 2020 really just changed many things in regards to how we do business, how we drive revenues. People were forced into having to do a pivot, whether they lost their job or they had to find a new career to somehow uh, pay the bills. But what I need to keep in mind, since you can't really cold call anymore, emails are getting blasted, nobody's picking up the phone. So Nancy, my question to you, what are people supposed to do who are trying to generate revenue?
Well, I think it's always going to go back to relationships because we didn't have all these tools 20 years ago. I mean, I started my business in the early 2000s, and I made it a point to get online and to use internet marketing. The majority of the people that I knew and that I met were not. They were, meeting people in person or, walking into places and meeting people face to face. But the point is that there's got to be some kind of a connection, a sense of connection, a sense of intimacy, a sense of I see you and you're a real person. And again, going back to that know, like, and trust. And it's really interesting because I attended a virtual conference back in the fall, and I wasn't really excited about it because I'm thinking, oh gosh, not another day on Zoom. And this was like 3 or 4 days, all day on Zoom. But they sent me a box. They sent me a virtual goodie bag. And in the box, there were envelopes, and the envelopes had numbers on them. And it said number 1, morning tea. And you open it up and there were a couple tea bags in it. And then there was another envelope that it said, don't open this until the night session. And it had a little bag of microwave popcorn in it. And that, and there were these little things that made me feel like I just walked back to the table and poured myself tea, and I just went over to the snack table and got something. So there are different things that we can do right now to create that feeling like we're in person. And so I have things I send my clients and cards that we write and we put into the mail, and mailing somebody a book with a personal note and why that book is important, and not just mailing the book that you wrote to somebody, because sometimes people send me books and it's like, here's my book. And I'm like, I didn't want your book. But if you send me a book that I really wanted, like, here's a book of poetry that really touched my heart, it reminds me of the work that you do. Something thoughtful, something tangible. I think these are the ways that we need to let people know this is a human relationship. I don't want to know you just because I see you as a transaction. The virtual space has made everybody believe all you need to do is put something on Instagram and you're going to become a millionaire. And there are a couple people that's happened for them, but chances are they had a good sized following prior to that, or they had some kind of a leg up in their business and marketing development that helped them, get to where they are. So end of the day, I think it's always about the relationships, and you don't have to have a million people. I take leadership roles in organizations that serve women and Latinas, and all sorts of different ways that I can get myself involved, and I'm doing it for free and I'm doing it for fun, and it's part of my passion and my mission. And then somebody says, oh, you know what, the company I work for really needs somebody like you to come in, and next thing you know, I've got something happening. So there's just this goodwill, relationships, connection, coming at it with a good heart and not looking at people as, a transaction. Yeah. And there's one thing I also want to say is that I think good marketing is your best sales tool. It does most of the heavy lifting for you. And so if your marketing is informative, it's educational, it's helpful, and it helps to build the relationship, then do that. So that way, when you do have the conversation, there's already a sense of familiarity. Every single day on LinkedIn, and it's been happening for the last maybe year or two, I'm getting spammed by people. They might offer me a friend request or a contact request, and I'm looking like, okay, that might be a nice person. And instantly, boom, bam, 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 bam. Here's me. Here's what I'm selling. I want you to check this out. And it's like, oh, it's too much. Can we say hello first? And I think you get a lot more value out of your network when you value the people first, and then you see what happens, because somebody might not necessarily be made to be your client, but they could be a great source of referrals and bring you 100 times more money as a referral than if they were the individual client. So it's really important to understand who is the client, who is the referral, who might be a person good to know because they might help open a door to something later on.
Nancy might have already answered my question in what she just went through, because my thought moving on to this was to turn the tables around as opposed to reaching out to people. How do we filter out this BitTorrent of information that's coming at us, as you mentioned on LinkedIn, and how do we try to figure out what is the good stuff and what is the bad stuff? There's been a millions and millions of times growth in data out there, and those outreaches, and I don't even answer anything on LinkedIn anymore if I get a request for a friend, because I'm afraid of what's going to happen. How do we filter that, Nancy?
I give I look at them. If I'm okay, since we're talking to salespeople, there's a good chance people might be hearing what I'm saying. I don't want anybody to be discouraged from doing their job.
Sure.
But when I see in my industry, because I'm a coach, I'm a consultant, I'm a trainer and a speaker, if I see somebody's profile that says, I teach coaches, consultants, trainers, and speakers how to make $1 gazillion, and I'm looking at them and they don't know, I'm not sure if they look experienced or if they're just saying that. Because if I do say, yes, you can be in my network, inevitably I'm going to get an automated message that's talking to me like I'm not getting the due respect I deserve as being a veteran in this industry. You're talking to me like I'm just fell off the was it the cabbage truck?
The turnip truck.
The turnip truck, one of those vegetables.
Where California you're from.
Yeah, I fell off that truck.
And so I find there to be like, it is important to go back and look at somebody's history. So if someone's prospecting, if they're doing that spray and pray type of prospecting, relying too much on automation to make your initial contact and relationship, it doesn't offer anything of value. I can tell that it was automated because first of all, it came instantly. And then the other thing is it's so long, it's like reads like a CVS receipt. It just goes on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever.
No.
So those are my warning signs. And I just, and I get rid of them. It's like, oh, you were my contact today. No more. Bye. See ya.
I've always said that don't ask for money, ask for consensus on an idea.
Oh, that's golden. That's for real. I think what happens though is people get impatient and they get worried about money, and we have scarcity thinking. Oh man, what's worse than being in sales and having scarcity thinking? Because then you get nervous and nothing's going your way and you just get no, and you get out of the flow. I mean, there's certain people, they get into that zone. I don't know anything other than sales where you really demonstrate that mental acuity and that it's going to be a yes, and you have the confidence. And then it's a yes, and it confirms that, and you keep going and going. And then there's the person who they get the no, and then they convince themselves that every answer after that's going to be a no, and that ends up what produces. So that's, I think the law of attraction and sales just go hand in hand, being able to, prove each other.
Is there an opportunity to be a hybrid, marketing, sales, technology person with the right target audience?
I definitely think so. And I've worked with a lot of people who are in sales, going over their LinkedIn profiles, talking to them about their positioning and how they're messaging themselves. And so first of all, how do you communicate what it is that you do in a way that doesn't sound like you're broadcasting it to others, but to make somebody curious and say, oh, I'm curious, I want to learn more. I mean, for me, that's my favorite kind of marketing, because I guess in essence, I'm in sales too. I own a business. I need, people to pay me, but I don't go out and prospect. I put my content out there and I get involved in all sorts of different things, and people will come to me. And it's generally just, I really love what you said over there. I really like how you showed up on this. I heard you on this interview and I really felt like we were in the same room together. So there are different ways that you can communicate yourself, position yourself. And that's my style of personal branding. It's just very authentic and it's very real, because we don't want to do business with the persona. We want to do business with the person. And a lot of people are just afraid to be real because, there's so many reasons, I think, well, the real me is, not worthy, or the real me isn't smart enough or good enough. So I'm going to pretend I'm this over here. I'm going to barricade myself with all of this branding armor so that I look perfect. It's okay to just be real. I'll give you an example.
Please.
So one of my clients, we were going over his LinkedIn, and he was working in a big tech company that we all use as a search engine, and was looking for something in a smaller company where he could, be more visible. And he was describing his work in all these weird jargony terminologies. And he said the word cross-functionality, and then he started naming all these different areas where, he's cross-functional with sales and marketing and communication and client care and And I jokingly said, oh, you put the funk in cross-functional. And he's like, exactly. And I jokingly said, I dare you to put that on LinkedIn. He goes, I'm on it. And he did. And he ended up getting this incredible job just like a week later. I don't know, it was because we said puts the funk in cross-functional, but it was such a bold move and it worked so well for him. He's pretty young. And, it was just that matter of being himself. And he's in a sales type of field. And so people have an understanding, like, I like his style. I'm going to be able to relax around this guy. He's not taking himself too seriously, and he's brilliant. He's got an MBA, very successful, very, has lots of awards and accomplishments under his belt. But there was something about being able to express himself that way that was so true and so authentic. And when people see it, he's not generic. That's why I think that our communication strategy is part of our sales strategy, because people will resonate with it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, marketing should listen to you as well, Nancy.
But Nancy, I guess the question I would ask, just based on that, is, how much free do you actually put out there? And then after a while, do you know kind of an idea of what you want to charge for the first level, service for you, or, speaking? But if you were to give people advice as to, well, how much do I charge once I know I'm providing a value? Can you give us a little taste of what that is?
So could we give a little context, name and industry? I mean, would this be for consultants and coaches, or is this for somebody who's working for a company? Because I think it's going to be a little different.
Yeah, and I think there's this transformation overlap happening, Nancy. So I will answer your question directly. Let's just say somebody who is trying to reach out, they have a service, they know that they're a value, and they now need to know what I need to charge this person. So let's go with an entrepreneur. Let's go with the consultant. Would that be okay?
That's perfect. So for service-based businesses, which I work with a lot of service-based businesses, so this is a great example. I always say, make your free content, prepare somebody to be your ideal client. So you need to know your ideal client and the entry level. So for example, once upon a time, the message starters that are in that free guide that I gave you, I used to have those part of a paid program, and you had to get into my program to get those. And then as my work evolved and the level I want people to be at when I work with them, when they come in, I want them to have that figured out. I want them to at least have their feet wet in it. So I'm going to give it away for free. And so if somebody is teaching, life balance, they can give out some free short meditations. So that way the person who comes into the work with them in their program already has a little bit of a foundation. You can see it with tech companies all the time. They give us a free version and we're good. And then one day we're like, I need the premium upgrade. I'm done with the ads, or I'm done with the limited use. And so, but you have a familiarity with the technology. So when you make the leap into the higher paying level, you don't need as much hand holding. So that's my philosophy, and it's been good. That's why, you can give away a sample chapter of a book. You could give away a sample module of something. It doesn't necessarily have to be giving away an hour of a consulting session or a coaching session. I think there are ways that it can be leveraged, whether it's a workbook, it's a webinar, but something that's really of value, not one of those webinars where it's an hour long and 52 minutes of it is all build up.
In software, Nancy, we call that the Wizard of Oz effect. And that's where you give someone part of your software, but basically there's nothing behind it, but it looks nice and they can use it. And then when they're ready to buy it, then you can roll out the rest of it. And it's actually a term they have in software that applies to this. It's really interesting.
I didn't know that phrase, but that's how they get me every single time. Because I'm like, I am tired of being out here in the nosebleed seats. I want to be where the, near the stage. Where are the good seats in this place? And I, it's worth it. And then there are other services. I'm like, okay, I had a taste of it. I already know this, or this isn't exactly what I want. This isn't the time. So I'm still a big fan of creating great content, providing it for people, giving talks, YouTube, doing podcasts. These are all great ways for people to learn about us, what we do, and get value. Because whoever's listening to this podcast right now is writing notes and going, oh my goodness, I got to try that. And I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that.
Great.
And everybody's going to be all, I put the funk in cross-functional.
I wrote that down too.
What are you actually doing to find a group of people who you're interested in, you think would be interested in you? But are you Google searching? Are you looking for groups that you can hang around, listen, engage? What do you suggest to people who want to find the right person to market to?
There's so many things, and everybody's interests are going to be a little bit different. I have always found the route through community involvement and service. So back in the day, well, I mean, not even back in the day, people still do it. They join Rotary and, the different Lions Club, all these different organizations that bring business people together under some shared values. Like, yes, we're in business, but we're going to go and do something good for the community right now. We're going to volunteer at a vaccine site, or we're going to volunteer of signing people up or beautifying the streets or cleaning up garbage. What is it that we're going to do? And it's in those types of relationships. Now, we're not doing as much of that right now, but there are, I mean, if you go to something like Eventbrite or even looking on Facebook, there are different events that are being hosted, and there might be a community forum, or there might be some kind of an industry event. I still find that to be really, really powerful. Joining any kind of a group, whether it's a membership or a free Facebook group or part of a paid program, I think it's really important to expand your network and find people who have those shared values, they're like-minded, and just make the connections. Because what I usually do is, if I find somebody who, it might look like they do something similar to me, and I'm thinking, oh, I can't be friends with them because they're my competition. And I realize, no, why don't I call them up? And I always say the same thing. It's like, let's talk about who our ideal client is, who we love to work with, who we don't love to work with, the kind of work we do. And let's find out where we overlap and where we differ. Because where we differ, that's my referral to you, and that's your referral to me. And I've got some great referral relationships with people who, from the surface, we might do really similar work, but it turns out we work with different types of people at different stages in their work, or maybe there's just a different shared value. So again, I keep circling back to relationships. Just talk to people, get out of your shell, and set up the call, have a virtual coffee chat, do that kind of outreach. And then especially in some of these online groups, you can see who's active and who says what. You go onto their website, you check them out, you reach out, you go, hey, I think we should talk. And the more you focus on building that network versus I'm going to go hit somebody up and I don't even know them, but I'm going to hit them up and try to make them my client. There are so many generous people out there who want to share opportunities, especially if you're a coach or consultant. A consulting team will call me and say, we've got this executive coaching gig, or we've got this big training coming up. Would you like to come in and be part of it? I'm like, sure, sign me up. All I have to do is show up and coach, and you pay me. Great, let's do it. And then I have my clients and my business. So we can have all sorts of revenue streams, and it's all, goes back to getting to know people and seeing how we can connect.
But Nancy, what is the best way to get a hold of you if somebody wants to use your service or talk to you?
Yes, my website is talentandgenius.com, all one word, talentandgenius.com. And once you're there, you can click on coaching and find out about coaching with me and speaking and training. And if you want to get the 10 message starters, the best way to go is talentandgenius.com/message-starters. So that's the shortcut. And then what you do is you will get 10 different ways that you can describe who you are and what you do. And my favorite part of it is I'll email you afterwards and just, touch base and give you some extra tips. But one of the tips is how to take a few of those little message starters and actually piece them together and create an introduction for yourself, whether you're out speaking or meeting people, or maybe you want to write it on your website or bio or social media, whatever. So I try to give as many fun ways you can spin it. And I've gotten incredible feedback. People said, I never thought of it. I never thought I could do that. And suddenly they are.
So with that, Nancy, I want to thank you for your time, for staying in touch with us over the last decade. Keith, Gunther, I know that Guys Talk Time is something different now, but I'm glad to have been able to work with you on, so we'll just continue on. So with that, I want to say adieu. This is Peter Godinez, your host of Your Pivot Journey. Until next time.